All right. What's up, guys? So today I want to walk you guys through a new project that I've been working on. And it's using some specific colors, blue and greens. And I'm going to talk about that. But first, let me just walk you guys through a couple shots that I've been working on. This is an animation actually that I'm working on, and it's about 7 different shots. Um, so the reason I like to name my stuff shot 100, 200 is just because I like to create a lot of space. So just in case there's going to be something in between that's similar between the two shots, I can do like a 150. But anyhow, moving on. I've been working on this project for a little bit. I'm really enjoying it. It's a full animation, and it's something that it's related to a software that I've been using for a while now. And I just want to kind of do some contributions because it's an open source piece of software, kind of like Blender. So this piece of software is called Neovim. So this is actually one of the logos of the software here. And so again, the software is called Neovim. I've been using it for some time now. If you guys didn't know, I also have some experience in the world of programming. I did like a couple years studying Python, JavaScript, and TypeScript. And being that you're in that world, you work within text editors. And so, like, the most popular text editor most people know is one called VS Code, but there's also a lot of other um, text editors like VS Code, PyCharm, JetBrains packages. They got a whole suite of packages. One of them is PyCharm. What else? We got Sublime Text. We have Atom, Helix. There's a lot of different types. And then there's one called Vim, which was created a long time ago for the Linux subsystem. So, not Linux subsystem, but Linux machines, I should say, to work in the terminal. So, being that Vim has been around for a very, very, very long time, the what's special about this piece of software is that it allows you to work only on the keyboard instead of switching from your keyboard to your mouse, back to your keyboard, and then moving your mouse around. It could be very tiresome when you're sitting there trying to edit text and make all these different stacks of code. So with Neovim, you use what you call keyboard motions, and so it's all based on the keyboard, and you can navigate all through the keyboard. So I'm going to show you guys real quick what Neovim is here in my terminal. So I'm going to switch my screen over to my terminal, and I could just walk you guys through what Neovim is real quick. So looking at this screen, this is my terminal. I've kind of stylized it. You could do a lot of things in this kind of world. But I can start Vim. We're in the terminal right now. So I'm going to start Vim, Neovim. And as you can see, it's a pretty cool text editor. So like, it's highly stylized. It doesn't look like this by default. I'm using something called a configuration, and I can share that with you guys too real quick. So if I switch over to this screen, I'm using a pre-config setup called LazyVim, and so it kind of sets it up for you so that you don't have to start from scratch, so that you have capabilities kind of like VS Code. And the beauty of this software is that it allows you to stay all within the terminal, and it gets you a lot better just working in the terminal, not using a GUI interface. And so I could kind of show you guys some examples of like how Neovim works. So it's all keyboard based. So I'm moving around all by the keyboard. I could type 10 and go down 10 spaces. I can jump back to the beginning, jump back to the end. Let's say if I wanted to search by a word, I could type in console. Oops. So I could type in something like console, and it'll find everything that says console, and I can just navigate very quick like that. I can use another keyboard motion where I could type in VIW, which will select everything within the brackets, or I can jump words, I can jump paragraphs. So it's a very handy software because it doesn't tire you out switching back and forth on the mouse. So you can edit things very, very, very fast. So I could do something like type in 3 and press DD to delete 3 lines of code. Or I could say I want to copy 3 lines of code. So I can type in 3 and hit YY for yanking. And I say I want to paste it down here by pressing P. I can paste it real quick. I can add another line, type something real quick, or if I want to create another function. So it's a very quick software. Again, Neovim is a alternative to VS Code. It's very handy if you want to explore the world of coding. So being that I've just explained that, let's go back to Blender. So we're going to move back. So again, this project, I'm going to walk you guys through this project real quick. I'm making this cool little animation. I've explained in previous videos how I get this process. So I'll just open up the old file. And so again, we're using simulations, and let's see, Neovim Vortex Sim. Okay, so starting off, I kind of did the same process here. I created a cool simulation, and then I took that sim and then I exported it out as an Alembic mesh. So here in this simulation, as you can see, I've added 2 forces. So I have one force pushing everything out, and then I have another force pulling everything back in. And so it creates this really nice flower shape. And I'm also spinning the shape with the turbulence and vortex. So the turbulence is giving it some nice swirls, and then the vortex is spinning the whole thing. And then again, I got these 2 forces pushing and pulling back in to create this nice flower shape. So I took it and I created 2 different sims with this, and then I exported them both out into another new scene, and a clean scene, so that I could create this whole animation piece. Now that I'm thinking about it, after I've done a couple of these exports and imports, I probably could have done it all within the same scene that I'm thinking now, and just had different scenes so I could keep everything contained in one file, which would be nice and then keep it a lot cleaner. But now, you live and you learn. So switching back over here, let's open this file. So going back to this, I started off with this shot initially first. So I imported the meshes, spun them around a little bit, and then I started playing with colors, and I started sampling the colors from the Neovim logo that I had shown you guys. And from there, I also, with the particles, I'm doing something a little different this time with the particles. So let me see if I can go here to my assets. So here, I actually organized my scene a little better too this time. So I brought in the simulations into what I call my assets scene. And I have both simulations here on the 0 point, and then I have my background, so that these items can be reused over and over again. So just to pause a little bit, when we go back here, all this stuff is being referenced from that asset scene. So there's no extra meshes being used. Everything is referencing back to that assets scene. So all these shots are referencing this asset scene here, using the same background, same meshes to complete this animation. Okay, so looking at the material for these meshes, what I did here was, of course, I've gave it a color. I set the roughness very high, and then to give these elements a really nice look, I turned up the transmission, making it kind of a, these little glassy balls that have color in them. And then also, being that it's very rough, it's a very foggy type reflection that's, propagating this color throughout each object. So it gives it this very, very nice look. So that's how I set up my materials. Pretty basic. Again, we're using geometry nodes, as I had explained in previous videos, going points to mesh with the geometry nodes. And I'll open that real quick just to share so you guys can get a visual on that. Let's see. Where is my geometry nodes? Matter of fact. Oh, we got to select the modifier. Okay, so if you select the modifier, there it is. Okay. So again, it's pretty simple. All it is, just two nodes that I'm using, mesh to points, put the size, and then set the material. So I created two materials, and that's it. And then also for the other one, it's two separate geometry nodes, just to be clear, so that they can have two different materials. So over here, again, same thing, mesh to points, set the material, and we got a green and we have a blue. It's pretty simple. So going back, we're going to switch back to my shot 100. Let's look at that again. And we're going to set the camera. Okay. So in terms of look development, that's the materials. The lighting setup is pretty simple too. I have two lights. So I usually bring in the background. So for this shot, I have a background. And what I'm doing here is we got a gradient. So if we go over to my shader editor and select this background, oh, we have to go back to the asset. So it's not going to show up. We have to go to the original asset because everything's being referenced. So if I go back here, we could take a look at the material. And all I'm doing here is just a simple gradient. I put it at a diagonal angle, about 45 degrees, and I set it at a gray to white. And this white is not a pure white. I don't like using pure whites. So the white's at like 0.8, and then the strength is set to 2. I'll show you what it looks like at a 1. I like that at 2, where it's kind of a subtle gradient. So that's the background. Very simple. And switch back to this shot here. So this is the background. We bring in the elements. So it's all black right now. Again, they're translucent, so some of that background's coming through the elements, which is really cool. So we can get a lot of that color coming through. And then going on to the lights, I have a light. My main key light is set to the right, lighting it right to left. And then switch to my viewport. So this is the first light right here in the viewport. It's kind of a bit of an angle, kind of lighting them from behind. Because if it was kind of forward, it starts to get really flat to me. So I kind of like to light it behind. And again, I like to have very high contrast to my shots, where you can really tell where the light's coming from. So a lit side, and then we got a shadow side, and then this background kind of makes up for it. And then I also added a kicker light on the back. So let me turn this main light off. So I added a kicker light to give more luminance coming from the back. So it's just a small kicker light. And then this spotlight's actually not supposed to be here. This light, originally in my original concept, I was actually lighting the background and not emitting it. So the background itself is just a light that's emitting this gradient. But originally I had a spot, and it was just too contrasty for me. So I can actually delete this and get rid of it. So this is my light setup, 2 lights, and then the background also, you can probably count that as like a fill maybe. And then this one is like a, what you call a kicker light. So that's my light setup. And then again, these particles are simulated, which is really nice. So these are simulated particles, and they animate. So we can just bring this timeline up, and I could just scrub through it real quick, and it's just a cool little spin, right? So I'll switch to my solid view so we can play it a little smoother. And then I'll bring this back. And so if we play it, right, this is what we get. It's a cool animation. And I'll explain what's happening here. So this is not the original animation. Okay. So in the original animation, the animation is very, very slow. If we look at the original simulation, it's about 600 frames, if I remember right. And here it's playing at 120 frames. Okay. So what I did here is we have another advantage I have not explained in Alembic meshes. So when we have Alembic meshes, all those frames are accounted for into the file. And so what we could do is we can retime our Alembic meshes, right? So if I switch back here to my modifier panel in the assets folder, I'm going to show you what we could do with these Alembic meshes. It's really, really cool what we can do. Okay, so I got this isolated. And so these Alembic meshes, we can retime them again, okay? So I can show you how it slows down and then it speeds up, okay? This is a thing called like speed ramping, I believe, if I'm right. Speed ramping again. So if we go here I have some keyframes set, right? You could tell by it because it's highlighted green. So I have a keyframe set at frame 1, and then I have another keyframe set at frame 120. Okay, so again, look, so this is what we had. We had 645 frames. So what I did was I took the whole animation and instead of making it 645 frames, I keyed it down to 120 frames. So I want it to end here. Okay. From there, what I did was I went here to my graph editor. Okay. And then I was also able to retime everything. So if I brought up, see, I might get lost here because it's always hard to bring it up though. That's the tricky part about figuring this out. Sometimes I always get lost. So let's see if I can figure. Okay, here it is. Cool. Now it's showing up. I just clicked this. Only show selected, so we can see it now. So I'm gonna just show once, showing both here. So we got Vortex 1, Vortex 2. On Vortex 1, right? This is what I did. So originally it was just a linear keyframe. So it's just straight line and that was it. And usually when you do animations by default, it does a curve like this, right? When you keyframe something in 3D or in Blender itself, usually it'll do a curve like this. So instead, what I did, so it's what's happening now is that it starts off slow and then it starts to ramp up in speed and then it slows off again. Okay. So instead, what I did was I took it and did the reverse. Okay. So we get this cool, like slow motion effect. So it starts off fast and then it slows down and then it speeds back up. Okay. Because basically, what we're telling it, hey, go through these frames really fast and then I want you to pause for a little bit and then go through the frames very fast again. That's what these curves mean. So that's a cool effect that you can take and do with the limbic meshes. Again, like I had explained in other videos, I love the flexibility of what you can do when it comes to limbic meshes. You have a lot of flexibility. You can rotate them, scale them, copy them, keyframe them, retime them, speed ramp. Like there's just so much you can do with them. This is this flexibility that you get. So that's how I animated each of these shots. And I animated it again here in the assets folder. And then I brought it into each shot. Okay. So let's bring this down. Switch back to my camera and I'll play it again. Right. So it slows down and then it speeds up and goes away. Okay. And so I'm making shots for each of those. So again, we have another version here, right? It slows down and then speeds up, right? So there is a little bit of stutter. Now, I wouldn't say stutter. It's just that we don't have enough frames to fit when it starts to really, really slow down. So I'm thinking that I should have probably did like 1,000 frames, but it just tends to be a lot to simulate. And sometimes I just get impatient, but I can work with this. It still looks really cool. It's a good execution, but if you want a very, very, very smooth as it slows down, you just need more frames so that when you bring it to this very slow motion phase, it can compact all those frames in there to make it even slower. So here's another shot. I'm going to show it rendered. So this is the rendered version. And then another shot. Right. And so this is just a solo. So like kind of the story that I'm telling here in these shots is like you got these particles that are flying through, a void, and there's these green particles and then there's these blue particles, and then they eventually come together and then they, marry together to make, Neovim. That's kind of the quick story to summarize what I'm doing with these shots. So it's very abstract. Again, I'm just taking these limbic meshes and then rotating them around. I'm setting a cool camera. I've talked about the cameras. It's just a 135 millimeter lens, very narrow depth of field. I'm setting a focus point and then moving from there. I take the limbic mesh, I rotate everything around, and I find a good shot that works. So I'm going to show you guys all my shots and then I'll create a new shot just to demonstrate how I'm doing this. So here's another shot. It's another abstract shot. And then we got shot 500. you know, so they're kind of intertwining with each other, you know. Let it render a little bit so you can see a clean version. So they're kind of intertwining. And then shot 600, right? So they've kind of married with each other. You know, now they're moving together in motion. And then shot 100 is like the final shot reveal of like Neovim. So like now they're together and they're spiraling together. And then I'm doing a separate shot of the logo itself too. So I want to comp this logo on top of shot 100. So shot 700 and 100. Eventually I'm going to comp those together. So this logo, it starts here. It moves real fast. Just a quick little spin like that. And that's it. And then, so it's going to quick spin and then just freeze. And that's it. And then the things are going to be spinning in the background. And then here, when I do it in post-production, you're not going to see it from sideways. So I'm probably going to have like 1 or 2 frames where it just reveals and then shows the logo. But it's just a quick little spin. I might slow the frames down a little bit because it's very fast. But the curve, this is the curve. So it's just, hey, go through these frames real fast and then slowly slow down. And that's it. All right, so let's make a new shot. So let's go to shot 100. And I'll show you how to make a quick shot. So I'm going to duplicate this. All I'm going to do is do a full copy. Right? And everything is, everything is referencing that original file. So I cannot edit these at all. Right? I don't even see the modifier panel. So I can't edit these. So everything's being referenced from that assets folder. Okay? So I can't see my stuff. Oh, that's right. Isolated mode. Okay. So all I'm going to do is just, maybe let's just hide this one first. Or I can rotate them together, matter of fact. So this is how you can just create a cool, simple shot. Again, I have the camera way over here on the 0 point. So the camera's here, as you can see. And the camera is set to 135. And our depth of field is 1.8. And then I have a focus point right there. So the camera has that as its depth of field focus point. Again, you can find that here where you can set it, focus point. You know, you can select it. And that's how you set it so that you can just always make sure you focus in the right spot. So selecting both of these meshes, now I'm just going to go to the top view and I'm going to start just playing around. All you do. It's pretty simple. After you've done all the work of simulating, getting the light set up, now you can just start playing with creating different shots, right? So maybe I'll take that, rotate it towards the camera. Look at that. So you're already getting something nice. Move it over here. Like this. See, like how I'm getting this part of the spiral and that part of the spiral. And there we go. There's a shot. Maybe I'll move it up a little bit, matter of fact. So there we go. Okay, so now I can take my focus point and set that. So I got 2 choices. So I can set my focus point in the background part. We could focus back here, or we could focus up here, right? So it just depends where I want to put the focus point. So now we're focusing on these elements, and these are more blurry, or we can focus over here. I say focus here. I'm going to focus back here, just like that. Okay. So now that we got that set, right, we got a cool silhouette setup. Now I can say, let me turn off this backlight. Actually, I'm going to leave it on because I like the colors bringing it. But now I could take this light and start playing with it also. So all I'm going to do is just move it back and forth, see what happens. So here, and I'm going to start slowly bring it into shot, right? And then let it render a little bit, see what I get. Move it, let it render, move it, let it render. Maybe back there. See, I like that. See, now we're getting something nice right there. So move it forward a little bit. And then maybe rotate it, see the difference. Maybe right about there. So this is a cool shot. Maybe I probably won't use it, but it's still really cool how it looks. Right? And then I'll tell you this too. So you might be asking why is he shooting this in a square format? Okay, so the reason I'm shooting it in a square format, it's because that we watch TV in 1920 by 1080, right? But also we also have phones, and so I want to have that flexibility to always just crop, because what I could do is I can always crop a square shot to the proper format. So I set my frame to a square, and then say I know it's going to be for, I want to do some posts on social media, then I could just say, okay, well, let's set it to 1080, right? And this is all in post production. I'm not going to do this in Blender and render it out like this. I'll crop it in post. So I can set my frame to this format for phones, and then I could slide it around, right, in post production. So I could slide this frame around to find that right composition. Same thing when it comes to if I'm posting for like YouTube. Like, say I'm gonna put this animation on YouTube, I could crop and then I could slide it around in Premiere or DaVinci Resolve in post production, right? I could slide it up and down. So again, it's 1920, 1920. So again, I can crop in landscape, slide the frame up and down, or I can crop vertical, slide the frame left and right. So that's why I always create in square, because I just want that flexibility, and I don't want to have to render this out twice, because it's not fun just to sit here and wait for these renderings. Even though I got a powerful graphics card, I still don't like waiting. I like having this fast graphics card for my look development instead, and then having that ability to pinpoint, you know, the look I want, and then being able to just render it out, and then, have this small setup to also render my frames really nicely and fast. So, but I don't like to re-render a lot. That's what I try to avoid. Okay, so this is how you can just set up a shot real quick. We made this additional shot. This is now shot 0800. Okay, so that's our new shot. So that's it. And now let me walk you guys through some other things real quick. So as I'm working through this animation, I also have all these different shots, right? A lot of different shots that I have to render out. I do not like to sit here and baby these shots and render them within Blender. Now, I haven't heard it talked much in the Blender community, but when it comes to rendering a lot of different things, or let's say you're working on multiple projects and you have to render all this stuff, and you don't want to sit here and render these items overnight and sit here and babysit them and get up in the middle of the night. It's always great to have a render farm to just manage that for you, right? And so I haven't heard it talked much in the Blender community. I've seen a couple videos, and there's some great videos on it, but Blender does offer a render farm manager, and it's called Flamenco. And so if you guys are not familiar with Flamenco, that's how you can just sit and render multiple things overnight. If you got multiple Blender files, or you got multiple shots in one file, you can use Flamenco, and it's a great piece of render management software. So I would look into this. If you guys have not known about this, I would look into it, read about it, and get it installed on your machine so that you can start rendering multiple shots when you need to. I actually have some render jobs running right now. I can't switch to it because I don't have my OBS set up for that right now, but the Flamenco software runs through your web browser. So you'll manage. So what you'll do is, even though I'm talking about render farms and such, it doesn't matter how many computers you have. Even if you have just one computer, you can put that computer on the render farm, because what you're trying to do is manage your render jobs. So you can send multiple jobs to that render farm, so that you got project A, project B, and project C, right? And you submit them all to the render farm. All you got to do is just go to bed overnight. The render farm is going to handle that and render it all on your machine. And then when you get up, all your stuff is rendered. Okay. Again, it is software, but software can have problems sometimes. And so, when you get up, sometimes everything is always not going to be perfect, but it is that level of automation that you have, and it makes you feel a lot more comfortable. So you don't have to sit here and babysit stuff overnight. So that's I wanted to mention that because that's what I am using to render this animation out. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'll show you guys when I finish this final animation and post it. I'm gonna hopefully be able to submit this to the Neovim community, which is the programming community, because it's a very loved software, just like Blender when it comes to open source. So that's it. I just wanted to walk you guys through this. Maybe I'll make another video once all these frames are done and finished, and I'll walk you guys through my post-production process of this too, and the editing part. So thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys on the next one.